and I saw what strangers can do for other strangers, because I literally showed up, and a few months later, I had 4-stage cancer. I could not hardly stand up on my own. I was making the 6 figures. I had run home, changed my clothes, and then I'm in my nice Infiniti SUV, and I am driving to this conference to have fun with my coworkers, and they're my girlfriends. We're having a great time, and I just felt like I had arrived. And I thought the worst thought I've ever thought. Girl, you have arrived, and you did it all by yourself, and you don't need anyone or anything. I did specifically ask never to be told my chances, because I wasn't accepting of that at all. Now, I was not the strong Christian I am now. I was a believer, but I was devastated. I had quit going to church. I was upset over my divorce. Again, I thought I had arrived on my own. It's like the worst thing I've ever thought. Like, when I'm sorry, I messed up. I have 2 babies that don't know you, and that's on me. So I'm sorry. Send someone to them that will teach them about you. To pick up where I left off, like where I should have been.
Send someone to them. So kind of like at that point, you felt you were gone.
I thought it was done for me. And I just told them, I'm sorry. I thought I was in control of my own life, and I wasn't.
Welcome to another episode of the Grow Podcast. First of all, I want to say thank you guys for staying with us from episode 1 up to this point. Like always, I have the best co-host ever, Jennifer Jones.
Hey.
What's up?
How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good.
How's your week been?
Busy, but good.
Good.
How's yours?
It's been good. Surviving. I'm
Yeah.
here. Before we go on, there's a third person on the show. We always have a guest, you guys know. And it's always a special person, because we never disappoint. It's the one and only, Christy Warren. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
How you doing? You know, when I saw, we had Sarah Frazier, the publisher for Tahlequah Neighbors, and your story was on the front page of the magazine. I read your story, and Sarah was actually like, you should get Christy on the podcast. And after I read your story, I was like, I'm getting you on the podcast. I don't know if I sent you a message the same day, or I don't know how fast it took me, but I sent you a message. We've been kind of talking back and forth, and then finally, Christy is here.
And I'm so glad to be here. I really appreciate you guys having me.
Happy to have you.
I'm excited you're here, because I just know like a little of your story, and I've been blessed and inspired. Not just even the story, but who you are and who you have become. And it's just I'm excited that people will get it here, and like our goal is, even if it's just one person that finds strength from your story. We've hit our goal.
Right, absolutely.
You know? Yeah, and that's just what we try to do.
That's my same goal.
Yeah.
Like, if I can use what I've been through, it gives value to that experience. If I can share what I've learned to help somebody else. Yeah. You know, it seems like, not a loss, but a gain. So.
That's cool. So we go. I always do so tell me about you. Who is Christy? But I'm going to let Jennifer ask that question today.
So tell us about you. Who is Christy?
I put her on the spot.
Yeah.
Like, I was trying to explain when you asked like what my title was or who I am, and I was like, well, I'm a mom.
Yeah.
And
if you can talk like into the mic so,
Okay,
so
sorry.
we can
Yeah.
have like
You're good,
your
no worries.
recording
I'm
and
a-
stuff. Yeah.
I'm a mom,
Yeah.
and I don't want to say just a mom because being a mom is like the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm not practicing right now because fortunately I'm also a cancer survivor now. And that is kind of more what I identify with right now. I just finished 2.5 years of chemo. I finished April 1st.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
And that was a really big deal for my
Yeah.
family. And I'm still doing some things to work on my immune system. And that
Yeah.
much chemo causes some damage on other parts of your body. So I'm
Yeah.
working on that.
Yeah.
And so what I really am right now is a facilitator.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, I take all my years of nursing. You know, I did, 10 years at the bedside, labor and delivery and other things. And then as a nurse practitioner, delivering babies and taking care of moms. I take all those years of figuring out what moms needed. And it wasn't always the same thing. Sometimes it was like, I'll go grab you some donuts, like on my way back, for a mom that just delivered a baby, I'd go home, get a couple hours sleep, and in the morning I'd swing by and grab them donuts and bring them back to the hospital. Sometimes it's just little special things, but after what I've been through, I know what I needed. I saw what the other women around me were going through, and I've just made it to where I've now discovered I can reach out to the community and sometimes just put two people in touch with each other to get going what a mom needs. And so right now I just kind of identify with being a facilitator for moms.
Yeah, it's I kind of feel like you've always had the spirit, because even before doing what you're doing now, while you were a nurse, you said you would do those little small extra things, and it's those things that count. There is your regular job description, but then there's that extra little small thing that would not cost you anything, but really is the big thing that makes a difference, that stands you out from the regular teacher or the regular nurse. And
I know that even more now that I've been on the patient side for so long. My first 7 months were extremely difficult. I mean, when you saw the magazine, that was my last day of chemo. It was actually taken just a few hours after my last chemo.
Oh, wow.
And I look like a pretty normal person, you wouldn't know I've just had chemo. But 2 years ago, I wasn't standing up straight after chemo.
Wow.
And the little things that people did, and it may not have seemed like a big thing to them to call and say, hey, I'm sorry, I've been so busy and I haven't been by, but I'm going to order pizza for your kids.
Wow.
Or I made this blanket, I'm going to send it to your kids. Or just calling or texting and saying, hey, I know you're tired, so you don't have to reply right now, but I want you to know I love you and I'm thinking about you. I'm being put on prayer lists. And there were certain moments where I became aware of what God was doing in my life through people doing a tiny little thing. And I'm like, man, I needed that today. How did they know that? And I'm like, oh, I see you, God. Like, they're open to doing God's work, and they don't even realize this little thing was God's work because it's what I needed.
Well, and you never know how a little thing like that can touch somebody's life and do so much for them, because they could be going through like what you went through, and even just being there helps them, like to know that somebody cares. That
we're going too deep into it, so I'm just going to pull us back a little bit.
Sorry.
So we don't go too deep into the juicy stuff yet. But just one thing I want to pick out from what you said is the little things that count. The little things that look like they don't cost anything. Those are the things that count. But first, you said you're a mom. How many kids do you have?
I have 2 kids. I have a 9-year-old little boy and a 5-year-old girl, and they are amazing. And they are joyful little kids, and I'm super excited about that, considering kind of the trauma they've been through with me being sick, and that they're just everything. And I'm I have a fiance. And he has 2 kids.
Oh, I can't wait for us to get to that story.
I know.
Oh boy.
The stories where I embarrass myself terribly are always the best ones.
Let's do. Oh, I can't wait to get that story. Go ahead.
But and he has 2 children. They're amazing.
So you guys
And
have 4 kids total.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so with combined families, like sometimes you have somehow, I don't even know how this works, but sometimes you have like 1 kid or 2 kids or 3 kids or 4 kids, and or sometimes we look up and we're like, oh my gosh, we don't have kids right now.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool. It's super hard. Okay.
Yeah.
It is super hard combining families. Last week, my 5-year-old wanted to, her stepbrother, her dad, his wife, and their child, she was like, I don't like him. And I'm like, yes, you do. And she does. She loves him. And she goes, I want to put him on a rocket ship and send him to outer space. And I'm like, she loves this kid. Like, why is she saying this? And then she's like, I was trying to talk to my daddy. And she was like, and he was trying to talk to him first. And I'm like, honey, that's okay. It's all right. And she's like, no. And so then I was like, you know what? Validate her feelings. I'm like, oh. So I just thought I'd play into it. I'm like, okay, we can put him on a rocket ship if that's what you want to do. She's like, yeah, Mom. I'm like, okay. So then I said, so then we came up with some other crazy ideas. Eventually she landed on baking him into a pie and feeding him to a giant.
Oh boy.
And I said, well, that's a little gruesome, but if that's how you feel. And then she laughed and she was like, I do like him, Mom. And I was like, I know you do, baby. And she was done. So sometimes you just have to validate those feelings, and because it's hard on all of them. You just pray about it and you just take it day by day, and then hopefully it works out in the end. So
yeah. Were you married?
I'm engaged.
No, were you married before?
I was married. Yes,
Yeah,
we were married, and he's a basketball coach in Muskogee, and he does a lot of good things there with the youth there. It's super important to him to not just coach sports, but to develop personalities. And one of the big things he does with some of the more troubled youth is try to instill some coping mechanisms for how to deal with difficult things. So I'm going to kind of give him that shout out because I'm very proud. Even though we're not married now, I'm very proud of the work he does. Talk about.
I for most people, like, I was married. I'm probably married for 5-6 years, and then he's moved on. He's married now. I'm married, but you just went ahead and gave like a resume of the amazing, fantastic things he's doing.
Well, he deserves credit for them, yeah.
So I would assume from what you said, co-parenting is going very well.
Yeah, it's hard some days because we both love our kids so much. If we had our choice, they would be with us at all times.
Yeah.
Right. So it can be stressful. And there's times it's like, literally, I'm like, I don't think you're listening to me. And he's like, well, I don't think you're listening to me. Do you want to talk about it later? Okay. But we also understand that ideally we wanted to have a 2-parent home for our children and raise our children together. That did not work out. We both did things wrong. I bet we both would change things, but now we both see that we're in different places in our life and we can move forward. Holding on to that isn't going to help our children. And so where we're at now, we just need to move forward. Yeah. We have a job to do. We're coworkers more than anything. Yeah. You don't have to like your coworker. You just have to do the job.
Right. So.
You can relate to that, right?
I can relate very well to that, yes. Yeah. I mean, it's similar situation, we have our days where...
And you were telling me about his wife and how she facilitates those times that things are difficult. And, and where I'm at in my situation is I can call, his wife and be like, hey, can you help pick up the kids? Because both of us are busy. Would that work for you? And I hope in the future there's more situations that will work out like that for all of us, for his children, for everything. And sometimes it just takes time. People can be in different spots in their lives where one of us is having a hard time and we become difficult to communicate with, or something is misinterpreted. I mean, it took me a while to be, am I accepting of her personality? What do I think about her? And then too, I thought I was dying, and so then there's this woman I'm thinking is going to raise my children. And it was like, and it became very serious to me. And I knew she was out there. I'd never met her. And I'm thinking, this woman I don't even know may raise my kids. Yeah. And then she sent a gift with him for me. And it was this little thing. And it said, warrior, not warrior. And because she knows that I'm a Christian and I it became very important to me, especially during my journey, to be focused on prayer and things like that. And she sent that. And I said to him, I said, who's this from? And he said, someone just gave it to me. And I knew it was from her.
Yeah.
And I thought he gave it to me like she asked. And she's never gotten in the way of him being there for the kids when I needed him. He'd even come and stayed in our home and took care of the kids one weekend so that my mom could go home and have a break. And I'm in the other room sick as a dog. And, if I needed something, he was there. And I thought, that's a strong woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's a strong woman that can not feel competitive for him to have gone and stayed at the ex-wife's home and take care of the kids and potentially take care of her.
Mm-hmm.
It meant a lot to me,
a
little olive branch she put out there.
It's it's best for families to be together, kids and both parents, but life happens. But it's also like really beautiful to see this dynamic, the way it works out with multiple parents and co-parenting and stuff, because it's there's a lot of situations like this where it's just not working out. So it's just really cool to see.
Yeah,
we talked about it when we had was that episode 2? Yeah. We had two single moms, and we talked about this kind of dynamics, and it's just really cool to see.
It's also a personal choice. It can be really easy, like I said
but
in the beginning. I'm like, what is she doing? What is he doing? What am I doing?
Yeah, it's a difficult personal choice though, because everybody has that choice available to them, but it's a lot of maturity to take that choice. Many times we're selfish, and it's us first. But to put the kids first, it takes a lot of maturity, and that's what you guys are doing. That's what you guys have done, and you don't see that all the time, So it's just your ex-husband, his wife. Are they married now?
They're not married, but I feel like she deserves that title. So I'm throwing it out there. Maybe if you watch this, maybe you need to
whether it's his girlfriend or whatever relationship they have, but I just feel like they deserve some kind of shout out,
for sure.
Definitely.
Because the kids need that. So that's cool. You were nurse for 10 years.
10 years on the floor, and then 2 years being a supervisor, and here in town, and I loved it. I didn't live here, but I felt like I lived here, and I just slept in a different town. And then when I had moved away, actually when I had cancer and when it was time to come home, this was home.
So I guess you stopped because of the cancer?
Yeah, well, I became a nurse practitioner. I'd gone through school during the time I was a nurse, and my kids were little, and I got a great job offer in Ponca City. And they were wonderful to me. I was a single mom. I was needing a change. And my ex-husband was super supportive because it was such a great job. We came home every weekend so he could see the kids. Again, that couldn't have happened if he wasn't supportive. And I went there and I met some really amazing people. And I saw what strangers can do for other strangers, because I literally showed up, and a few months later, I had 4-stage cancer. I could not hardly stand up on my own. I found myself living in the doctor I worked with, his wife taking care of me in their home at one point, and they just stepped up.
Because you read into it. Let me stop you there. So how did you find out about cancer?
I've thought about this all day, like where I wanted to start this story, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump off a cliff here and tell the truth.
Where you want to start.
Okay,
so ahead. The floor is yours.
We went to I went to Nashville the day before. I went to a conference to learn more about ultrasound, because we did ultrasounds in the office.
When you say we, that's work stuff.
Yes, it was work stuff. It was me and a couple other nurse practitioners that were going, and we went. And I remember I'd been up all night delivering this baby, and as I was driving, I felt like I remember thinking to myself these words: "You have arrived." I was making the 6 figures. I had run home, changed my clothes, and then I'm in my nice Infinity SUV, and I am driving to this conference to have fun with my coworkers and they're my girlfriends. We're having a great time, and I just felt like I had arrived. And I thought the worst thought I've ever thought. Girl, you have arrived, and you did it all by yourself, and you don't need anyone or anything.
Yeah.
So we go to the conference, and this is the part sometimes I leave out, but I'm just going to go ahead and go there because it could help one person.
Yeah.
We go to the conference, and we go out to one of those restaurants with the rooftop bars, downtown Nashville, and kind of their strip there. And I end up getting roofied in a bar.
Oh, wow.
And
So you ended up getting what?
roofied, like the pill they'll put in women's drinks to like kind of incapacitate them. And that happened to me in a bar. I knew at some point that something was wrong. That's about the last thing I remember. And I went across the room because I thought whoever has done this is nearby and I need to get farther away. So it was a big bar, and I just remember booking it to the other side of the bar.
Were you by yourself? How about your friends?
I was with a group, but like 2 of them had left. And then the one somehow I was there with, I didn't know that well.
Okay.
And I remember, I guess I took them my phone and like had them call my friend, and they tracked me and put me in an Uber. And, but like the situation is that the person that had done it knew I wasn't quite with it. I shouldn't have, I should have probably just sat there until they came back for me. But I also wasn't thinking clearly, I'd been given something. So it ended up not being the best night of my life. So that's what I'm going to share of that. And the reason I'm going to go ahead and share it is because for a long time I told the story. I couldn't remember everything. I wasn't really sure what happened. I was super ashamed. And so when I went to the hospital, because it shut, I couldn't pee. Like, that's why I went to the hospital. I was out of it. I'm like, I feel so out of it. And on the way home, one of my girlfriends said, I think you've been roofied. Like, I think the way you're acting, you're not sure what's going on and you can't pee. Like, that's a side effect. So I only went to the hospital because it's really important to be able to pee. Like, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So God took a really bad thing and let something of that save my life in the long run, because I had been running on fumes for a long time. I was having trouble breathing, but I blamed it on allergies. I was having all this pain, but I blamed it on some female problems I'd had. And it wasn't until it's like, okay, girl, like, you've got to go now. Then I went to the hospital, and my dear friend Roy Ward was the ER doctor on, but he knew me, so he looked at me and said, I'm so embarrassed to be here. I got roofied. I don't even know what happened. I don't remember anything right now. I'm embarrassed. I don't want my name on the computer. I want in and out, but I can't pee. He's like, okay, we'll take care of this. And so but he said to me, he said, you don't look good. And I was like, well, thanks. It's been a rough weekend. Thank you so much for that, Roy. And, but he came back an hour later and he was crying. And I thought, I've got to get out of here. He's got some sick kid or some really person he needs to focus on. I'm taking up his time. And he sat down and he took me by the hand and he said, Christy, he said, sis, he said, I'm so sorry. He said, but you have lymphoma and you have it everywhere. And now I'm a nurse practitioner, but I sat there and I went, and of course I'm a little confused because it's not clearing my system because I'm so unhealthy. And I'm like, lymphoma, what does that mean? I thought, oh, I meant cancer. How did you go through all those years of medical training and you don't even know? Because I thought lymphoma meant cancer. I can't have cancer. So it must mean something else. And I'm thinking, I need him to leave. I'm going to have to Google that. I really thought that meant cancer of your lymph nodes. And of course, I'm a little out of it. And then I'm like, then it hit me. He is telling you have cancer, girl. You better pay attention to what he's saying. So I'm like, and first thing I said back to him was, I don't have time for that, Roy. I'm busy. I got angry. I'm a single mom with 2 kids. My practice is going well. I've got a full schedule. I don't have time for this. And that's what I told him. The look on his face, he goes, I think you're going to have to make time. I'm like, I don't have any time left. So I tried to negotiate that, and it didn't work out for me very well. I mean, it turned out I for sure had cancer. But he said something to me really monumental in that moment, as I'm trying to negotiate that I don't even have time for this in my schedule. He said, listen to me. And they transferred me out that night, and he said, when you get there, you've got a lot of cancer. It's in every single picture we took. And they're going to tell you stuff that you don't want to hear. And it's so progressed. I don't know what they're going to tell you, but I have a feeling they're going to tell you it's too late. Don't listen to them. Wow. Don't listen to that part. He said, promise me that you will live. You have 2 kids. You have to live. And I was still a little out of it, you know? And so I said,
how old were your kids?
2 and 6.
How old were your kids? 2 and 6.
2 and 6.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. He was so adamant. And those words spoken, like I had promised him that. And when I went to the hospital that night, I knew they're going to tell you it's so progressed. But then when they would say it, I would go, but you've already decided not to die. You already promised you wouldn't die. And that just stayed with me. And I don't know that it works that way for everyone. I believe truly that God intervened on my behalf, not because I was more deserving than another cancer patient, not because I did anything special. I don't even know why to this day. He chose to intervene. The only thing I know to do is pay forward the gift I was given to be able to raise my children, to help other moms take off a stressor so that they have a better chance of survival too. So that has become my purpose. But that's how I found out I had cancer. A traumatic event led to potentially saving my life, because I would have gone back home and I would have kept suppressing these things going on.
Yeah, and it probably could have been turned out worse than...
I could have just collapsed one day and it would have been too late. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know it's super heavy.
No, it's okay.
But I just figured, like, I've only told a couple people, so why not just go ahead and do this now? Like, while we're recording and just get it out there.
I feel like we got exclusive on the Grow podcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. How many years ago was this? 6, so probably...
September 16th is when I was diagnosed. So we're a few months from the 3-year mark.
3-year mark. And then you got to the other hospital, and what were the chances you were given?
I did specifically ask never to be told my chances, because I wasn't accepting of that at all. Now, I was not the strong Christian I am now. I was a believer, but I was devastated that I was being given this diagnosis. I know at one point I told my mom I was laying in the hospital bed, I was super sick, and my mom was a super sweet lady. I mean, she's like the sweetest blunt person you could ever meet in your life. And I told her, I said, Mom, I've not done enough to teach my kids about God. I had quit going to church. I was upset over my divorce. Again, I thought I had arrived on my own. It's like the worst thing I've ever thought. And suddenly, the 6 figures and the nice vehicle and the home and the neighborhood I'd wanted to be in because it's the right school for my kids, none of that mattered. Suddenly, my daily life was to hold down a protein shake and not die of skinniness. Because when you've tried to maintain your weight and suddenly they're like, you're too skinny, you're going to die if you don't hold some food down. It's like, really? Now I'm going to die of being skinny? Like, that's some bull right there. You know? Anyway, sorry, that's my soapbox. But none of that mattered. What mattered was just trying to walk to the bathroom and back. You know? And so all of those materialistic things, like right now I'm broke. Cancer was a little pricey, and I'm okay. And it's a different mentality because right now I have everything I need. I can hold down food. I can take care of my children. I don't always have the energy for everything I'd like to do, but those are wants. God gives me the energy every single day for what I need to do for my children.
And let's talk about the journey too. You coming to where you are at now. Treatment.
2.5 years of chemo. I lost most of my hair, not all of it. This is fake. Okay. I know I asked a minute ago if like my tabs were showing, but I knew at some point I would just admit I have fake hair because women shouldn't be embarrassed of it.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
So I'm pretty proud of it. My girl Krista Stark, just here in town, she does it for me, and it makes me feel good to look more normal. So, but yeah, 2.5 years of that, and I still do treatments for my immune system. Physical therapy. I'll have surgery in a couple weeks for something that's been caused from some chemo.
So you're done with chemo?
I'm done with chemo.
Are you cancer free now?
I am in remission. I consider myself cancer free, but after having 4th stage cancer, they don't give you like a cancer free label. You're just in remission. Okay. So.
And that what's in remission? What is that?
It's kind of like they're not willing to put themselves out there and say, "Oh, you're cancer free," just because you've had so much cancer. So. Okay. But I feel free of it. So.
Yeah. Okay, so there are lots of things we had talked about with the effects from the chemo and stuff. But aside from the chemo, you talked about you still have, there are still things you go for, because I know last week you still went for
an infusion.
I
have a port. You know, it's like this weird bump right here. And I do infusions every few weeks, and because I don't have an immune system anymore. I had so much cancer, and it was a B cell cancer, that they give you a ton of chemo, and then some B cells are really good, and it kills those too. It kills all the B cells it sees, and you need some of those for your immune system to fight viruses and bacteria and all that. Man. So I'm in remission, but my I have common variable immunodeficiency, meaning I don't make antibodies. So like if I catch a virus that you have today, you're probably immune to it next week. You've already had it. You're not going to get it again. I could get it 3 or 4 times. But I don't get sick as much as you would think, considering the immune system I have. The things I do just work. But it's kind of a full-time job trying to stay healthy. It really is. People go, "Why aren't you back to work?" And I'm like, first of all, that's a little bit rude to tell you the truth. Some people say it very nice, but some people are like, you know, like, "Are you just mooching off the government?" And I want to be like, "I took out a cancer policy. It was a little pricey, and it's covered me, thank goodness." But you know, I don't feel my hands very well, especially this one. And like when you deliver a baby, people want you to be like, feel your hands, you know. And then just different things that are going on that I've got to work on. You know, the coughing that I do if I get cold. Thank goodness it's warm in here. I know you're not liking that, but it's good for me. I don't cough as much in warm air.
So when you cough more when it's cold?
It's like a nerve thing. It irritates the nerves. And I don't know if you've been in a hospital, but they're cold. Yeah. And then I get short of breath and I can't hardly breathe. I have to be when I'm outside, different things. I have a heated coat, heated gloves, heated socks, heated blankets. I have electric blankets in all my family's homes. My sweetheart keeps one in his truck so I can plug it in so he can have the air conditioner on and I can have a heated blanket. But you just, again, you figure out what works. You know, and we just make it work.
And so you did mention that you can't go back to work right now as being a nurse just because of all the things that you, but is that your goal?
COVID
is that
and things like that, you know, they're not going to release me to do that.
Right, absolutely.
My daily goal is to accept what God wants me to do. There are days I wake up and I'm like, I should be going to work. I should be delivering a baby today. And I grieve the loss of this life I thought I would have. And then there are days I wake up and I'm like, girl, you get to raise your kids today and you get to talk to someone about what God's done in your life. And you'll get to go back to work if that's what God wants, and that's good. So, and
you survived stage 4 cancer. Like, that's amazing.
And so, you know, it kind of depends on the day. I have more good days than bad. So,
you said you had surgery coming up. What's that for?
You know, random things just go wrong. And so, like, randomly, like, they're like from all like chemo and the dieting and the things like that. Like there's like something blocking off like a duct like by my gallbladder. And
it's nothing like really major.
No, this is not a major thing at all. This is just going to be like it's annoying, you know? But it's fine. So I'll get that handled. You know, sometimes my platelets are low. It can be a little bit more of a concern with that. But last time I checked, my platelets were trying to act right. So, you know.
Oh boy, this is okay. You talked about the nerve damage. You touched on some of it already. You said you don't really feel your legs and your
I don't
hands,
feel my feet,
your feet.
and I don't feel my hands.
Like how much of don't feel is it? Like
if this was hot or cold, it'd have to be very hot for me to know it. And the very cold, I might not notice that. I'd notice the effects of the cold, but not the cold.
How much would something have to hit you on your hand for you to feel the pain? Like how hard?
I feel pressure.
Oh, okay.
I don't feel pain initially, but then afterwards, I'm going to get nerve pain from it.
Okay.
So, like, if I stub my toe, it doesn't hurt initially, but maybe 60 seconds to a couple minutes later, I get some nerve pain at my leg.
So it's not like it's completely.
They are pretty. I can feel my thumbs.
Yeah.
Like I can feel myself doing this. But if you took a pin and did that, I would not feel that.
Do you? Because it's been a process. Do you feel like it's been getting better over time?
No, I feel like it's gotten worse over time. The more chemo I had, I feel like the more permanent it became. But it's up to God if it stays permanent.
I'm actually saying, since when did you finish chemo?
April 1st, just a couple months
this
ago.
year. Also, it's still pretty fresh. April fresh.
And it may wear off some more. Okay. You know, it may. I feel like in the beginning I could feel it come on and then it would wear off before the next chemo, come on and wear off before the chemo. And then at this point I feel like it's just maintained a little bit more. But
you did chemo for 2.5 years, so I mean, it's pretty understandable.
And again, I didn't die, and I'm raising my kids,
right?
And I'm taking every opportunity I can to help someone else. Some days it's frustrating. When I'm trying to do something like fine motor skills, and I can't make it work. Trying to do my necklace today, like I don't know how long I'm in the mirror. And I'm like, I kept dropping it, you know, and I'm like going, this is ridiculous. And I'm like, oh, you will fasten your necklace yourself, you know? And it's just one of those things that it's like, it's a small price to pay, even though it does keep me from doing ultimately what I'd like to do for a living. For now. For now. You know,
like she said, she did die. And that's what the biggest one for me at that point, because you've just told us the whole story and all that stuff. But I can imagine that you had some real fear of, even though you said you didn't want to have them give you the percentage and all that stuff, but
I was resuscitated during my first chemo treatment. I thought I was punking out on the very first treatment. And that is when I was like, okay, God, I was wrong. And it saved my soul. It turned out I was allergic to my chemo. Oh, wow. So the very first treatment, my scalp started burning and my hands felt like that nerve pain, the damage it causes to the nerve. Suddenly, I said, it feels like someone is driving nails under my fingers.
I'm getting chills.
and I'm like, my friend that's a nurse, she had looked at me a few minutes before and she said, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. She's like, no, you're not. I'm like, yeah, I am. She's like, you're having an allergic reaction. I was like, no, I'm not. And then as she went to run and get help, she's a nurse and she recognized this. I'm like, gosh, she is really being a little cray-cray right now. It hit this feeling. And I'm like, I'm burning and it's hurting and my scalp is hurting. And they call out for help and I hear them bring the crash cart. And I'm like, okay, maybe we're being a little dramatic. It's just some, nerve pain here. And then a few minutes later, I felt my throat just close off. And I was in so much pain. My mom was there and my good friend was there. And they're pushing medications into my port. And they're all running and they're getting kind of excited. And I just remember like telling my friend, because she was trying to calm me down. She had a background in oncology and I did not. And she's like, it's going to be okay. Hang in there. Hang in there with me. Because I had hives so she could see what was happening. And I'm like, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Like I'm thinking they're overreacting. So when I felt my throat close off, as I was telling her I was fine, I couldn't breathe. And my eyes must have just been like, and she said, I know. The meds will kick in a minute. It's going to be okay. And I'm like, it's not okay. This is not okay. I cannot breathe. And my brother passed away 10 years ago, and he was a year younger than me. And so my mom is sitting there, and I just remember thinking, like, oh no.
So
like,
was it cancer related for?
No, it was an accident.
Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you. But I'm like thinking, you cannot do this to her. You cannot make her see this, like, she's lost one child, they're terrified of losing me, and you're gonna make her. I'm like thinking, no, and I can't breathe. And I remember getting tunnel vision and things going dark and just feeling very fuzzy. And finally I thought, okay, that's it. Like, they're pushing epi again and again, and they're asking, where's the ambulance, and because they're going to transfer me, and I'm just like, seriously, I'm going to punk out on my first chemo? I was ready to fight. Like, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And I just remember in that moment, I thought to myself, you have not done enough to teach your kids about God.
Yeah.
And I was so overwhelmed with that knowledge. And I just remember screaming out to God, like, God, I'm sorry I messed up. Yeah. I have 2 babies that don't know you, and that's on me. So I'm sorry. Send someone to them that will teach them about you. To pick up where I left off, like where I should have been.
Send someone to them. So kind of like at that point, you felt you were gone?
I thought it was done for me. And I just told him, I'm sorry. I thought I was in control of my own life, and I wasn't. And I'm sorry. I thought I was so much bigger and badder than you, and I didn't need you. So send someone that teaches my kids that they need you.
Yeah.
And I felt alone, and I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. Like, just send help to them. And then the craziest thing is, like, I couldn't hear anyone around me anymore, and I was had just decided, okay, this is it for me. And then I could just breathe. And there was just this thing in my head that said, you tell them, you teach them. And I was like, really? Like, you're gonna let me do it? I was like, okay, I don't remember much after that. I was kind of zonked out after that. But in that moment, it was like, girl, you are not in control. And I didn't want to be in control anymore. It felt so peaceful to just say, God, I don't have this. And I need you. And it was the first time in my life that I had handed my burden to God, and I could feel it physically lifted from me. And I had all these aches and pains and things like that I didn't need the control anymore. I didn't need it. I needed God to have it.
Wow.
I don't know, man. It's just like we were talking outside from the camera, and I was saying, there are things that other people can get away with, and you do, because someone could hear your story and they're like, well, I also had I also probably still have like a 7-figure paying job. I have all this stuff, and I did it all by myself, so what is she talking about? If you look through the Bible, you look at Saul, what he went through, look at Jonah. There are times that God just needs to get our attention. And did God bring, because someone is like, so why would God bring cancer her way together? God didn't give him cancer. And the Bible is clear. God doesn't punish or tempt with evil. But when you go away from the covering, then you expose yourself to those stuff, you know, and it's like we are all exposed to different things on this earth, you know, and in when we put ourselves under God's covering, it kind of protects us. But sometimes we lose the focus, you know, and we're like, you know, I've done this, I've done this, and you're probably at whatever age you were at that time, and you had achieved all that you had achieved, you know, and God just probably needed to bring you back.
I just think he allowed it in my life so that my true purpose could be brought to my attention.
Yeah.
And he didn't do this to me, but he takes imperfect plans and then he gives us a future. Yeah. You know, and I look at, in hindsight, it's always 2020. Like, oh, that's what God was doing. I'm like, I see you now, God. But ahead of us, oh man, like, you have little faith. Because it's like, God, I know you have a plan. Like, help me trust you. Like, help me. Because God doesn't tell us to do things and then not help us obey him. Yeah. He doesn't say, do these things and then tempt us. Like you said, he doesn't bring us the temptation. He helps us with our temptations if we let him. Yeah. And so I think God allowed it in my life because I needed to help other people. When my sisters were like, you're going to get on social media, we're going to have everybody pray for you. And at first I allowed that because I thought, I've not been a good enough Christian. I don't deserve to ask God for help. These other people I know that are stronger Christians, I need them to speak up and talk to God on my behalf. So I was like, yeah.
Maybe he will listen to them
because they're righteous people, you know, and he'll listen to them. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, yeah. Start a Facebook page. Let you know, you guys can share it, get people to pray for me. And then I discovered the power of prayer.
And how loving God is.
Oh, and that he was working through these people because when they created this network, I know at one point I was extremely ill, and I remember feeling like if I closed my eyes and I just let go, I could pass away. Yeah. And I remember thinking that, and I was like, no, you know, this mental fight just to keep breathing for my kids. And I had so much pain in my head and I was hurting, and it was like work to take a breath. And I was in the hospital, and the doctor said to me, they said, Christy, I don't know why, but they've not scanned your brain. We know you have cancer everywhere, and we don't have a scan of your brain. Maybe this pain you're having, it could unfortunately be cancer in your brain.
Oh, boy. And that would have been...
I kind of lost it. I told my sisters, I said, no. Someone get on Facebook, you find your praying friends, and you tell them it's too much. I can't take it. I have cancer from my knees to my neck, and that's where it stops. I will not have cancer in my brain. And I was like, and I just started praying. I was like, God, I can't. I don't know why, but that's too much for me. I have something to do, but I need to be able to think. I need to be able to talk to my children. Like, please don't let there be cancer in my brain. They took me back to the scan, and they scanned my brain. And during the scan, I felt the pain go away. So I asked them when I got back, I'm like, what did you give me? Because it worked. After some discussion, trying to figure out, my stats came up. My stats weren't very good before I went back. My blood pressure wasn't good. And they're like, did someone give her something? And they're like talking amongst themselves. They're like, no one gave you anything. My sister, she says, Chrissy, you had about 100 friends on your Facebook page. But we started sharing it. We told them what was going on, that you said you couldn't handle it. And she's like, there's 600 people on it now in an hour.
Wow.
And so...
everybody prayed.
Everyone prayed. And then there was another instance at night. I told my sister, it was like 2 a.m. I said, some of my nurse friends will be up. They work nights. I'm in so much pain. I just can't take it anymore. And I knew then, I said, please put it on Facebook. I need prayers. I'm hurting. And she came back in 30 minutes later. And I said, okay, it's working. And she's like, did you take some medicine? I said, no, it's got to be the prayers. It wasn't time for more medicine. And she goes, let me check. She gets on Facebook and she looks it up. She goes, you've had 200 friends added at 2 a.m.
Wow.
And I'm like, I knew it. Because there's a difference in feeling the healing power of God. And I just kept thinking, like, God, I know you have a plan for me, and even if it's eventually that I pass away, I'm doing something in the meantime. I had a friend that was an atheist that decided, I asked her to pray 3 times a day. And when I went into remission, she said she was running, and she said she just fell to her knees. And of course, she used a bow where she was like, "Are you effing kidding me? You're freaking real," you know? She's like, of course, she's like that, and I love her. And my friend Katie, she's amazing. But she messaged me this, and she was like, "Are you freaking real? You know, God is freaking real. Like, you got to be kidding me." And she said she just felt something, like she knew for the first time in her life God was real. I went to text my good friend.
She used to be a thief, right?
I went to text my friend, maybe not an atheist, but just not a full believer, you know?
Yeah.
And so I went to text my good friend, like, "Hey, my friend believes in God now, and here's what this is." And I went to message my friend, and because we were out in the country, I decided to use Messenger through the internet because there's no cell service. I discovered that on September 16th of 2017, the year before I got cancer, I had sent her a message that other friend was antagonizing me on Facebook with memes against God and trying to get me to, like, you know, argue with her on there later. She's like, "I wasn't trying to get you to argue. I was just trying to be funny." I'm like, well, it felt argumentative to me, you know? And I wasn't even a strong Christian then, but she was kind of tagging me in it. And I was like, "Will you please pray for me to one day have an opportunity to teach her about God, for her to believe?" That was September 16th. 1 year late.
2017?
I think so. When did I get diagnosed? In 18, so
18.
17.
So,
So then in 2019, sorry, so that was 18, so 19. In 2019, that 1 year later, I was diagnosed with cancer. September 16th, a year later, she messaged me that she believed. When I messaged my friend, because I knew she prayed for her, but normally it was through texting. I only used Messenger because for some reason I had used it that day. If I hadn't been in that location and needed to use that, I wouldn't have seen what God had done. But 2 years ago to the day, I said, "I need help." I said, "I'll do anything to show her God is real." 1 year later, I'm diagnosed with cancer. I asked her to pray for me and believe it. I said, you know how, like, in a movie, and we want to believe in Santa, so we buy into it that last 15 minutes, you know, and we're like, "Yeah, Santa's real. Everybody believe." I said, just do that. Even if you don't believe, just pretend you believe. Like, mean it for me. What's it going to hurt? And she said, "Okay, I will. I really mean it." And it changed her life. You know, what I went through, you know. And a woman I ran into in the grocery store one day, she tapped me and she said, "You really inspire me." And I'm like, "Oh, great. This is a crazy woman because I don't even know her." And then she just starts telling me, she's like, "Christy," she was like, "My friend shared your post." And I thought, man, that poor lady with these 2 little kids, and she's going to die. She's got bad cancer. She's not going to make it, but I'm going to pray for her. She said, "I hadn't prayed in years, but I had been a single mom with kids, and it spoke to me to feel alone like that and to be struggling. So I started praying for you." She said, then all of a sudden I started praying about some other stuff since I was already talking to God. Then I started praying about this and that. Then I thought, well, I really think I want to go back to church. And she said, then I realized that I didn't want to pray for myself because I didn't feel worthy to go to God with my problems anymore. But I was willing to do it on your behalf. And it got her back to God. So our struggles may not even be for us.
Right.
They may be because someone else needs to identify with them. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn. I'm like, what am I supposed to learn out of this? And sometimes it's like, no, you're supposed to share something.
How's your mom? How are the kids? How they doing now?
Everyone's good. My family is good. That's why they came that day to the party, and it was in the magazine. It was just a big celebration of, you know, what's taken place and a new chapter in my life and moving forward.
Speaking of new chapters, you're engaged, right?
I am. In fact, I got I got my ring like an hour before the show.
Before we go to the engagement, there's an interesting story
of
how she met him.
How did you meet him?
So, I have an idea of the story, but I don't know the full gist. So
Okay.
tell us, how did you meet your fiance?
So our boys were playing football on the same team, and so I had gone out onto the field to get pictures of them running out because I really, it turns out I really love being a sports mom, and it was outside, so I got to go, and it was kind of the first opportunity. My doctor's like, yeah, you can go out and be around people, so we're super excited, right? Yeah. And I get to watch my kids play sports and cheer. This is a big deal. And so I would get excited. I'd go out there and take pictures. And I'd seen him. And I won't lie. I'd seen him. And I was avoiding seeing him because I get really embarrassed.
Did you know him before then?
No.
No. Okay.
No. In fact, someone had been like, oh, you should meet him or whatever. And I was like, no. Because I also felt like maybe I need to wait till I was done with chemo and things like that. And you get to a point in your life where you can feel unworthy of love. And that's kind of, I think, where I was at. And I've been working through that. But just I'm too messy. Yeah. My health, my finances are a little messy. Just everything's too messy. Yeah. How do you ask someone to participate in that, Right. And so, and I would date or whatever, but I don't know. So I was avoiding him. And because I thought he was cute, so I had to avoid him. And so I'm taking this picture, right? And so I go to turn around just to hurry back to my seat. And he was volunteering on that chain thing. What's it called? The chain gang? Is that what they call it?
I don't know anything about football.
The football things.
Oh, yeah.
With the, they mark the field. Yeah.
See,
do you see how well I paid attention? I was really just there, for the kids. But I smacked into him, hard. And so then I'm about to fall down. And he, kind of grabs a hold of me to keep me from falling down. And he's kind of a quieter guy. When I get embarrassed, if you think I'm talking a lot today, it speeds up 5 times. And I say whatever I'm thinking. And so I'm and I'm embarrassed because this is the cute, hot football dad. What am I supposed to do now? Now it's awful. I've run into the hot dad. And so I'm it's him. So I'm I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to run into you. And then I realized I'm trying to get away and I'm tripping because my feet are in that chain and I can't get away because I can't feel them. And I'm so sorry. I can't feel my feet. I'm wrapped up in this chain. I don't know what to do. And I'm saying whatever I'm thinking. And he's like, it's okay. And I'm like, it's not okay. And I can't feel my feet. And I know that's really weird, but it's a long story. So if I could just get away from you really quickly. And then as I go, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna walk to the side. And he's like, I'm still falling. And and I'm making it worse. He's holding me up, which is making me more embarrassed. Yeah. And then as I walk to the side, I to steady myself, I went like this and I rubbed my hand across his chest. That embarrassed me. So then I was like, and now I rub my hand across your chest and you think I'm a creeper and I'm not a creeper and I'm just going to go over here and die now. And he's and he is beat red. And I'm he goes, it was really nice meeting you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And he says something about messaging me later or something. And I'm now he thinks I'm a floozy because I rubbed my hand across his chest. But he was super sweet. He messaged me later. He's he was full of it. He's I'm sorry about running into you. He knew I ran into him. And he admitted that later, but he needed an excuse to message me, Mm-hmm. And so we started talking and then.
How long ago was this?
Not very long ago. I'm going to tell myself. September.
It's last year.
This last year. But yeah, we've been together 9 months. When you know, you know. I didn't understand that statement until he came into my life.
Wow.
Because I made a list of what I wanted because I'm that chick and I prayed over it. And then all of a sudden after just a month, I was
how many of the things on the, at least how many things on the list?
He has everything on an 8-page list.
8 pages, wow.
Did you say 8 page?
I'll show you after. It's has categories.
That's impressive.
And
wait, 8 page or 8 things on the list?
I don't know if it's 8 pages, but if you scrolled it, it'd be 8 screens because it's on my phone. Does that make sense?
Christy.
Communication and everything. I thought, if I had a lot of time laying around sick in my bed, so I had time for that.
That does make sense. Yeah.
And I'm that chick, and so and then he's just amazing. He's really amazing. But we had trouble getting the ring, and finally one day he was like, babe, I'm so sorry. Like, I want to make plans and I want to get married. I want to do these things. And your ring is lost in the mail and I have no idea where it's at. And so I don't know what to do. And then it finally came in and it was the wrong ring, poor thing. And he had to send it back. And then the new ring was coming and somehow, like when it should have been delivered, it was sent back by UPS. And so finally he was like, I don't know what's happening here. So at some point we like got engaged and he does super sweet things all the time. And so we knew the ring was going to arrive.
And he got the ring today.
I got
he
like
gave
an
the ring to
hour.
you today.
An hour before I came here.
Was it a surprise? Was it?
No, because he does all these really sweet surprises all the time. And our schedule is so busy. So I said to him, I was like, do we have to like, because he does sweet things all the time.
Yeah.
Like one night I was like, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. And I told him, and I thought he's going to think I'm such a girl. I was like, I just want to dance with you, but I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to go to a bar. I don't want to do any of that. Like, but sometimes I do just, because that's not really my scene at this point in my life. But I'm like, I just want to dance with you, you know? And I messed up because he's like, I know a place. And I'm like, oh, great. Because he's a country, but I'm like, we're going to some dive bar and I'm tired and I just fixed my hair today and church is tomorrow and I really don't even want to be in a bar. Like, I'm too old for that. And so I'm like, okay, but he knows the place. We'll go for a while. We'll dance and we'll go home. And then, no, it was like some drive out into the country and the sunset and he just turned the music on the truck and we just danced right there. Like, and I was like, he's perfect for me. And he's, you know, we're both imperfect people. And the cutest thing is when he thinks he's like, I don't really know. I'm not good at this. Like, he thought he messed up Valentine's Day because he took me for a drive out in the country. It was snowing this Valentine's Day. Out to this.
How did you do with the cold?
Oh, he has a heated blanket for me in his vehicle. But he took me way out into the country where they have these wild horses, and we just sat there and watched the wild horses, and we ate barbecue, and he drove me around to show me the places, like, you know, from like growing up, and it's like back roading in the snow, and I was like, he doesn't realize it, but he nails it.
We had talking about love. She just sounds like she's 4-year-old again.
Yeah, I've even had some people like, oh, they just met, whatever, and I'm like, haters.
There'll always be haters, though. People always. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Is there a date yet, or exclusive on the Go podcast?
I'm not trying to be like a celebrity with it or anything, but we're just gonna keep those details to ourselves. Okay.
So no exclusive on the Grow podcast.
Since we're part of it, we kind of should get an invite, right?
We had a wedding planned and we had to cancel it because of scheduling of the children, and so at some point we will do something that involves the children for sure, and we were talking about it. We're not 100% sure what we're going to do. We can't do something where it doesn't work out either for like everyone to be there, or we just need to do it alone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
How are the kids with it?
So I'm only going to speak on my children, because that would be up to him and their mother to talk about that side of it. But my kids adore him. Yeah. There are moments, especially my little one, and it breaks my heart. She'll go, but what about Daddy? Yeah. And I'm like, honey, Daddy is with Amber, and they're so happy, and you love her. And she's like, I know. And she's even told me we could just all live together. So, she's 5. And but they adore him. They don't want him to disappear. Yeah. And I only mention that because I think people need to know it's normal, that it's hard. I've even early on, I had moments where I'm like, I love him, but do I want to give up time with my children? We have a good thing going, and it's like, no, he adds to that, Yeah. So they adore him, and he's really good to them. He's the opposite personality of me, so it's fantastic because I think they need that,
Man, happy for you, Christy. That was, good ending to the story, but we're just happy that you're doing good. We're
Thank you.
That,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that you're fine, and you're doing things within the community too, trying to help other people, people going through stuff.
So let me just quickly tell you what my goal is on that. Yeah. when moms are having a hard time, they can't help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And people will sometimes step up and pay a bill or whatnot, but they don't always think about how their kids are going to get Christmas presents, birthday presents. Sometimes those things that we're not just worried about keeping roofs over our kids' head, we're also worried about who's going to buy that stuff for them and handle the birthday parties and make dinner, and, you know, and so I'm going to keep kind of doing the garage sales because everyone likes to donate, and that was a really awesome thing. So I'm still taking donations. I don't know when the next one will be.
So you do garage sales?
I did one, and it worked really well.
Like you get stuff from you get people to bring things,
random things. I collect them, and I do need a storage unit so I can start storing them. I won't have a storage unit when we move.
And then after you do the sales, what?
When something presents itself that, now I'm not somebody you can just call up and go, I have this friend and she needs $2,000. I don't have $2,000. We just have to find someone and then see what their needs are and do something. And sometimes it's just facilitating, like, hey, it doesn't have to just be moms, because here's the thing, like when a husband or a father, when they're suffering, we got to take care of them too, like for sure. Heath and Melinda Sunday that are here in the community, like she messaged me one day and it's this simple. I go on Facebook and I say, hey, can some people donate some gift cards to help with dinner or take some dinner over there, because he is terminal and hospice is involved. We need to take that burden off her so she can just spend time with her husband. I don't really do anything sometimes other than just post, you know, but it always works out that somebody I'm friends or family with has available what someone else is needing. It's just the coolest thing to watch God work that way. So in the future, I do want to do more to help moms in the community, families in the community that are dealing with, and it doesn't just have to be cancer, chronically ill. Eventually, I don't really even know how to do it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you had like a plan. If
I do want to do a nonprofit. I've just kind of been waiting on my health and all the doctor's appointments to settle down. There's never a good time. So if anyone's watching this and like, oh, I know how to help you start that and I can facilitate it, I could use a facilitator too. And Sarah has offered to help me with that. So I just kind of need a little committee to get it going.
Yeah, for sure.
But you know, there's super exciting things going on. But moms that suffer from mental health stuff too, sometimes we need to take them a dinner. There's such a stigma attached, and it was easier for me because I lost my hair and I could wear a turban, and nobody has to be embarrassed about having cancer. But our mamas in this community feel like they have to hide their mental illness, and that breaks my heart. You know, and so sometimes maybe it's those moms that need to be able to call up and say, hey, I would be more than happy if someone going through a traumatic time in their life or just dealing with whatever they deal with called me up and said, hey, could you post and see if some of your friends might want to help me with dinner for a week? How awesome would that be for moms, you know? Like, or maybe we'd find some moms that they've dealt with their own mental illness that they're like, yeah, I'm doing good now. Like, if you know someone that needs that help, I'll bring him dinner next week. So there's so much opportunity to help.
And I mean, we would like to help in any ways that we can too. So if you probably come up with some kind of structure or some kind of plan, any ways that we can help, we would do another episode to kind of put it out there. We would be out there to help, just any ways that we can help.
Maybe we can get your couches. We're looking for couches. and then whoever's going to help with it, we can just come and talk about what we're going to do.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it doesn't have to be at the finish line. Even if at some point you feel like there is something going on and you want to jump in and do something, you have all of this space to do what you want to do.
I appreciate that.
And, you are an amazing person, Christy.
And thank you for what you guys are doing here.
Well,
I mean, it's like sometimes you need a space to let your light shine. Like you do feel like other people. I feel like sometimes I get self-conscious about putting myself out there, and I'm like, no, this is what God wants me to do. That, you know, not everyone's going to love you, not everyone's going to like you. It can be hard to want to just kind of put your face out there, what you're doing out there for fear of criticism or whatnot. But I have a job to do.
This is the deal. This is the deal. I was watching America's Got Talent.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've seen it, but there's this lady. She's got cancer too. Have you seen the video?
It's okay not to
She's
be
got
okay.
cancer.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
she sang beautiful. And, you know, she came with a smile. She was, and you know, they asked her like, "You look so happy," and she was like, "It doesn't have to be all perfect before you can smile." You know, and then she also said it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the whole concept. If I saw you outside right now with the way you're looking, I would
Never.
I wouldn't guess that you probably went through 10% of what you've gone through.
Mhm.
Do you understand? And you're not even fully out of it, but you're still trying to push yourself and trying to serve and trying to help community. So it's just we can all just somehow in some capacity we can be better. We can smile. You know, we can. It would just make the whole world a better place if there can be some kind of this kind of mentality, and if you can spread it around. It would just imagine how much better the community and the world would be if we had people that had that mindset that it doesn't have to be perfect for us to be okay.
That's exactly
You know.
what Paul, like you mentioned Saul earlier,
Yeah.
like a big thing for it to change his life.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he tells us in
Yeah.
Philippians is that, you know, don't worry or be anxious about anything,
Mhm.
but
In all
rejoice in
things.
everything.
Yeah.
He was in prison. People wanted to kill him.
Mhm.
They were doing terrible things to him.
Mhm.
And he had joy in his heart
Yeah.
because he had that moment where he'd had all the things like I
Yeah.
thought I had. And then all of a sudden he realized this is all
Yeah.
that matters. Living for God is all that matters. And so I love what you're saying. Like we just have to get out there and do what we can, even though we're
Yeah.
having struggles, because you can't wait for the perfect time to be a servant of God.
Most times the answers don't come to you. Most times you have to like step out in faith to get those answers. You know, many times we're waiting, we're sitting for something to happen, we're crying, we're complaining. But most times when people step out, things happen. And hopefully, like we say, just one person watches this video and just find strength, you know, in your story and the things that you've shared. And yeah. That's the goal.
Well,
That'll
thank you
make us
guys for
happy.
having me. You're
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thank you for being
I'm so
here. We love
excited.
hearing
Thank
your
you for
story.
coming,
It's
Christy. Well,
amazing.
you guys just heard from Christy Warren, who she is, what she's been through, and the fantastic things that she's working on. Hopefully, I mean, we're friends on Facebook. I kind of feel like we're friends right now in real life.
I feel like we've gone there now.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah, so we will be in touch, and if at some point things happen and you want to give an update,
Absolutely,
we would
yeah.
like to
Yeah, for sure.
have you come back and just talk some more.
well, I don't think the story's done yet.
No.
Yeah, it's not right.
It's not done
Probably
yet.
have
Like-
a part 2 whenever you want to come. It's open. Just come whenever you want to come. Yeah, but the final words, you want to give a shout out to anyone, probably to your kids,
Oh,
to
sure.
your
Vivian, Kai.
your fiance.
Hey, babe.
Uh,
No,
Okay,
his name is
okay.
Joshua Justice. He's fantastic. I don't know if I said his name earlier, but he's fantastic.
cool.
So.
Well, hey, you guys, just go put your kids in football. Just look for some dad somewhere, bump into him. And, that's kind of how it works. So
That's it. You know,
Yeah.
like if you pray for the person,
make sure you have like an 8-page list
Yes.
first before you do that, because
But you know, I don't think you have to look. I think you just have to pray about it that God will put that person in your path,
Yeah.
and God is never going to let you miss out on the person you're supposed to be with.
Mhm.
So you can. I wish now I knew I could kind of relax because God was in control.
yeah,
My trying to make it work was not working.
yeah,
God taking the wheel and me just finally throwing it up and going,
yeah.
God, you bring me the person I'm supposed to be with,
Yeah.
but keep the band-aids away.
Yeah.
You know? And then like I ran into him literally. So.
Just one question: when is your surgery? I know you said you had
I don't know
surgery.
exactly. I've got to meet with the surgeon,
Okay.
so but I can let you know.
Yeah, we're all rooting for you. We're all praying for you. And 100% it would your nerves, and I with all that you've been through, I'm convinced that God did not keep you alive for you to be 50% or 60%.
I love that.
That's just what I think. I don't think that He brought you through that whole journey to be 70 or 80%.
But as long as I'm 100% for God.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal. And I mean, you're there already. We've thought, we probably didn't have time to talk about it, but you've been doing fantastic things with your faith. You've drawn really close to Him. Your spiritual life has really grown. So so I know that you would. It's a process. It will probably take a while, but I'm just looking forward to the big things that you would do.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to the big things you guys are doing.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that I now have your number. So when it becomes so big, I won't have to message your PA. I'll just come straight to your office.
No, you just message me. I don't know about all that. How about when you get really big, I'll be like, please, can I just have a spot?
No, you won't have to beg for a spot, Christy. You just come right in.
Good things for all of us, Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. We've had a really good one with Christy, and we always come to that time when we have to say goodbye because we are again at the end of another episode. Thank you, Jen.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Christy.
I enjoy being here with you.
But see you guys on the next episode of the Grow Podcast. And like I always say, we've said a little bit already. Spread some love, spread some hope, and be kind to someone as you step out this week. We see you guys on the next episode. We love you guys.